Hello, brother friends and sister friends. Welcome to the Heart Set Above podcast. I'm Ellen Radcliffe, a therapist and a believer, here to help you navigate faith, relationships, and life in a world so far from Eden. This podcast is a space where we'll explore topics that matter deeply. Things like grief, connection, identity, and practical faith, grounded in both therapeutic wisdom and biblical truth. Whether we're wrestling with the messy middle between love and righteousness or learning to communicate like Jesus, we'll do it together with hearts set on things above. So grab your coffee, settle in, and join me as we pursue deeper connection with God, ourselves, and others. Let's dive in. On a recent trip that Georgia took and an upcoming trip that I will soon take, kind of a personal retreat. I don't know what to call it. I was calling mine a silent retreat, and someone kind of looked at me like, what the heck is that? What you've been calling yours like a pilgrimage?
Yeah, I call mine a pilgrimage. And for a while, I was very hesitant of like, do I deserve that phrase?
Right? Is
Have
this worthy of that title? Yeah.
have I won that phrase? And I literally Googled it to see like, what is the actual definition of pilgrimage? And it did say it was like a long, arduous journey to a holy place. And I was like,
Oh,
well, my
check.
journey took 2 buses, 2 trains, and 2 ferries, and it took 9
Wow.
hours in total. And it was to a holy island in Scotland. So, or like, a self-proclaimed holy island in Scotland. So I feel like, yeah, so that convinced me. I was like, okay, I can use the term pilgrimage. But I'm so intrigued by silent retreat. Is it, yeah, what's it, what does it mean? Are you silent? Is the environment silent? Is it everything?
Yeah, that's what I wasn't. So there's this place that a friend of mine was telling me about. She went to. It's actually run by the Catholic Church, but it's open to, I guess, anyone with a faith who needs like a retreat. And I think it's the idea is you come and you just have a personal retreat with God. Like I could not go there with my husband. They only have rooms for single occupancy, right? Like I don't think they have even a reservation, like even an option for double
Mm.
occupancy. So it's just about a personal retreat with God. And my friend was telling me that you can request like a placard that you wear that's basically saying, I'm on a silent retreat. Please don't talk to me, which honestly, I would love for my whole life, really,
Yeah.
especially when I'm getting my hair cut or something like that at the dentist. I'm like, love to be like, please don't talk to me.
Don't interact with me. It's okay.
Yeah, or massage. Yeah, exactly. But so I don't know if I'll wear that. I'm just going with myself. I guess what I mean by silent retreat is it's more silent for my heart, right? Like I'm not going to bring even a book. I'm just going to bring the Bible and a journal, and like there won't be any music. I won't be watching any TV in the evening, anything like that. So I would say there's part of me that feels like my soul is yearning for this. And then there's another part of me that feels like I'm dreading it.
Mm.
Because, the part that's used to comfort and watching TV at night and listening to music and being stimulated every minute of the day in some way, even with music in the background, that part of me is like, what am I going to do for 3 days with nothing? But I think there's another kind of deeper existential part of me that is like, this is what you've needed. So let's talk about really quick before we dive into your recent trip, your pilgrimage.
Mm.
Uh, why are we talking about this? Why is it important? I feel like if I were a listener, I'd be like, golly, they can't stop talking about Sabbath and rest. Like, why don't they shut up about that? But I do think, one thing that is the role of a therapist is to say things that are difficult that people don't
Mhm.
really want to hear. And just because they don't like it doesn't mean we're going to stop saying it, right? Doesn't mean it stops being true. And I think what I've seen is kind of like right, if we took every client I've ever worked with and we zoomed way out or boiled down the answer, quote, answer to their problem, I think the answer would be drawing near to God. But I think doing that isn't possible without some space. And I think,
Mhm.
certainly maybe literal space, but like space in your life, margin, right? Space in your heart, time, essentially, to process, to draw near.
Mm.
to, be still. And I think that is so, so difficult to do in our modern society when life is coming at you a million miles a minute. There's so many, responsibilities on our shoulders. And I don't think we were ever meant to live life like this. Like, I think the way that we in the Western world live life, it's so incongruent with the way that we were created, with the way that even ancient biblical times
Mhm.
lived, the way that they lived their lives. So, I think that the reason we keep harping on this is because it is so central to our faith. It's so central to how we operate, how we need to operate as healthy, emotionally and mentally healthy Christians. But it's also such the antithesis of how we actually live our lives that I feel like that's why it keeps coming up in our conversations because it is the answer, but it's so difficult to even make space for this kind of Sabbath or retreat or pilgrimage.
Mhm. I'm so glad you said that because I think that's so true. And I think I was feeling that sense of like, oh, here we are speaking about retreat again. Here we are speaking about rest again. But I think, it goes to show how vital it is. And I think how vital we've seen it to be in our own lives and in our own experiences. And I think, as you said, like how hard it is to practice it. And I love that you called it space and spaciousness. Like, I think that is kind of what God wants for us. Like, even there is definitely, I can't think of the which number psalm this is right now, but I remember it's like a psalm by David where he says like, "You've given me a spacious place," like to
Mm,
God, and I think that's kind of the what we're getting at here is like allowing ourselves to respond to those invitations to spacious places, whether those are like physical places in terms of like going on retreats or like more emotional or mental spaces of like just taking some time out or like taking a day to Sabbath. Even someone in my life is going through something very difficult right now and is going through a grief of sorts, and I've noticed that I've had to share with them multiple times, like, hey, you need space, and that's what
mm,
we keep coming back to. It's like,
yeah,
I think this is hard because you need space and you're not getting space. And it always is coming back to that. So I think even that just goes to show like in those moments, it's so necessary and it's still hard to get, like, let alone in like our day to day lives. Yeah, I heard a
yeah.
crazy fact recently that's like,
Huh.
we see between 4,000 and 10,000 adverts every day.
Wow.
Every day. And even
Oh my
that, I think of
goodness.
like, we need space from what we're being bombarded by in terms of like consumerism
So
and like
true.
the world and like just like what we're being told about what we need that we don't have. Like there is like there's not only the space in order to like draw near to God, as you said, but the space to like get away from the noise. Like it's so, yeah, both those things.
Wow, that is shocking. And I don't know the number, but I know that there's a similar statistic out there about how many decisions we have to make in a day, right? That we are all
Mm-hmm.
kind of teetering on decision fatigue because we have so many decisions. But a lot of that is because our worlds have become so big, right? There are so many different things we can be entertained with or can be bombarded with that can take up our psyche, or
Mm-hmm.
our attention, and it requires decisions, everything we do, right? And I remember some of the most blissful moments of my life are times when I've been away from the hustle and bustle in life and the decisions I have to make are super minimal, right? Like what will we eat at
Mm-hmm.
the next meal, right? Like that's the
Mm-hmm.
only thing I'm thinking about, the only decision I have to make. So yeah, I love that. I love, just the call for, yeah, sorry we're harping on this, listeners, but the call to this I think is so important that we're taking a break from our last time we met, we were talking about what are the things that we learned or we are continuing to learn as therapists that are helpful for everyday Christians.
Mm-hmm.
And we will get back into that series. But because just the timing of this worked out where Georgia just went on a pilgrimage, I'm going on this, whatever you want to call it, silent retreat in the next few days, actually. So we thought this was just a good time to kind of bring this up. And so for some reason, the Spirit keeps bringing it up. So we're going to follow that
Mm-hmm.
and we hope that it's useful to people. But tell us about, Georgia, your most recent pilgrimage. What made you want to do this? What was it like? Why was it helpful or not?
Mm. Yeah. Gosh, where to begin? I know I wanted to go to this island for a while. I knew I wanted to go for a while because, um, well, I mean, just logistically speaking, it's the only like island in Scotland that's like beautiful that you can easily get
Mm,
to without a car.
okay.
Every other place you need a
Yes.
car.
Yeah.
I don't drive, so
Uh-huh.
I was like, "Great, I have no excuse to not go to this island. You can't get there by car. You have to go by foot. So I'll go."
Nice.
So there was like a logistical sort of like, I want to go. It makes sense to go. But I think it was also my birthday, so it was my birthday trip as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it kind of stemmed from a previous trip in the Highlands of Scotland that I took. I find that the Highlands of Scotland are such a place I meet with God.
Mm.
It is like there is something about that landscape that is like terrifying and beautiful
Mm.
all at once. Like it is like there
Wow.
is, and it just completely stirs my awe for God and my, yeah, I think my worship of him and my closeness to him. And so I'd had this trip in the Highlands in October last year, and being up there, it was like a last minute trip, and it really helped me see like, wow, this worship that gets stirred within me, and this like clarity it brings as well. You know, it was a
Mhm.
trip where I really felt like, wow, I've got some answers to questions I've had, and you know, all this kind of stuff. Um,
Wow.
and so it was from that trip I was like, I need to plan this sort of time away, this time in nature, this time like a bit more alone, and this time with God, and I suppose in like the Scottish beautiful Highlands. Um, to like, I need to plan it a bit more regularly into my calendar. And so
Mhm.
after that I decided, I like booked as soon as I came back. Actually, I like came back from that trip and booked it
Wow.
that day, that I was going to go to the island which is called Iona in Scotland. And yeah, its reputation is that it's a place of pilgrimage because it's where Christians landed in Scotland. I imagine from Ireland, but also probably even further back. Like there's lots of like Viking history to do with Iona as well.
Wow.
But it's described as a thin place, which I just love. And what they mean by that is that the veil is thin between heaven and earth in Iona.
Mm.
And so you're kind of brushing up against eternity, which I just thought was so beautiful. And yeah, I was just like, wow, what an inviting place. You know, what a beautiful idea, to be somewhere where the veil is thin, and you know, God's presence is really felt not just by um you know, people who are practicing Christians, but by people who aren't even, and are just like
Mm.
visiting the island. Like even they could sort of sense there's like a spirituality there that feels very inherent. And so yeah, that drove my decision to choose it, and like decision to go was just like seeing how much I connect with, in particular, this landscape of this
Mhm.
country.
Mhm.
um
Wow.
yeah, yeah.
I love that. Do you know any people named Iona? Is that like a name?
I do
You
actually. I
do?
know
That's a
two
name people
people
have?
named Iona. Yeah, yeah.
Wow. So, do you know, have you ever heard the name of the place Caledonia?
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What does that mean? What does that refer to?
That's a good question. I actually don't know. I wonder if it even, I'm gonna Google it. Is that okay?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
curious now.
please.
Um, Meaning of Caledonia.
Because I'll tell you why while you look it up. So, I lived in Ireland for a little bit,
Mm.
and what made me and whenever someone asks why I moved there, I got to tell you the truth. It's because of Celtic Woman. Have you ever heard of the band,
Yes,
the
yes.
group Celtic Woman? Okay, I saw a PBS special of Celtic Woman, and I was like, this is amazing. These people, like it felt like a call from the motherland of Ireland. I have no descendant, like I'm not descendant from anyone from Ireland, I don't think. But I was like, I must go to Ireland. So one song that they sing like lots of traditional folk music from, Irish and I think probably Scottish and British culture, right? And so one of them is called Caledonia. It's a beautiful song.
Mm.
And when I became a disciple, right during my time in Ireland, so I always associate like, like sort of what you're saying, this very ethereal, landscape, in nature, right? Like I had that same kind of experience during my time in Ireland. And I really associate that with my time with God. I always refer to it as my honeymoon with God, right? Because I was there in Ireland for a little bit. And then I came back, became a disciple, and then went back and had like this honeymoon with God. So, but one song that I really love is Caledonia. And the lyrics in it, I always thought I could swap out the word Caledonia for heaven, and it fits in the song, right? Like heaven is calling for me, I'm longing to go home. And I always thought one day I'm going to name my daughter Caledonia because it's so meaningful, this song to me and this place. And it's just so connected to God. And I literally had, and I thought we'll call her Callie, but her
Yeah.
full name will be Caledonia. I had people in my life who are like, please, Ellen, we're begging you, do not name a child Caledonia. They were like, don't do that to a poor child. And so I didn't know if it was the same with Iona, if it was like, no, people aren't called that, just places are called that. Because I've never met anyone in Caledonia. I don't know. But
Yeah.
Callie's cute and Caledonia is so meaningful. But no, people begged me. I didn't have a daughter, fortunately. I didn't have to make this decision.
Right.
But they begged me. They were like, please do not.
I think it's a beautiful name. I really
Thank
do.
you.
And I like the shortening of it to Callie as well. But yeah, so it is just the name for Scotland in
Oh, for
in um
Scotland.
in Latin, apparently. It was a
Oh,
Latin term used by
interesting.
the Romans to describe Scotland.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess it's been Scotland. Maybe I need to go to Iona. Maybe that's what's been calling me, this thin place to go to this where the veil is thin, where I can,
Mhm.
commune with God in a deep way. Wow. I love that. So what did you go? It sounds like your trip to the Highlands a couple of years ago was sort of like, I need to go and be with God. I need some answers on some things. And this was kind of a continuance of that, right? It
Mhm.
wasn't like life is getting so overwhelming, I must get away. This
Mm.
was, hey, that was a great, fruitful experience for me and God, and I need to build that in regularly. And this was kind of a continuance of that or continuing in that way. Is that right?
It was, and I think I suppose what I'll say about that initial Highland trip is that I didn't plan that. It came upon me, and it wasn't that I went alone. It was that my friends were coming to
Mm.
Scotland, and they were like, "Hey, we'll take you to the Highlands."
Oh, fun.
And so I was like, "Great, I guess I'll go up." And I hadn't even connected at that point how much I'd needed that sort of time and
Mm.
space. And it wasn't until I was like getting answers to questions that were on my mind and like was having those like prayer times with God where I was really like filled with awe and filled with just worship for him that I was like, okay, this clearly offers me something very
Mm.
meaningful, and this clearly offers me something that, it offers me clarity, it's offering me peace and joy. um and so rather than allow myself to like kind of happen upon the next trip or like wait for the next person to
Mhm.
get up here and take me to the Highlands, I was like, I think I need to embed this into my life a little bit more and
Wow.
offer myself this sort of calendar. And even after Iona now, I was saying to someone last week, I was like, because that was I think that was like a 9-month gap between those two trips. I was like,
Mm.
that was too long. I need to do it even more
Interesting.
frequently. Like it was like,
Wow.
and maybe it doesn't need to be as far away as Iona, but
Sure.
just I think I've realized how powerful those times away are, and I feel like it would just so
Mm.
happened, like it really it's almost like God whisked me away to the Highlands that first time. He was like, "Right, you're not going to do it. I'm going to take you there, and we're gonna get some
Yes.
answers, and you're going to enjoy this." And then it was through that I was able to learn, like, okay, let me respond to this proactively rather than, reactively, I suppose. And like actually like, you know, I suppose allow myself to notice like this brings fruit. Let's embed it. Let's bring it into a bit more of like a yearly and annual schedule of sorts. So yeah, I'm trying to work out
Wow.
maybe an even sooner trip than 9 months
9
from
months.
now.
Yeah. Wow. So two things I really want to highlight about what you just said. One is I love that you used the word whisked away. God whisked you away to the Highlands that first time. That's a word I keep using to describe my upcoming trip, right? My friend went on this trip. She just came a week ago and was telling me about it. And I just thought, yeah, I need to do this and I need to do it sooner rather than later because I knew sort of like you came back from the Highlands and booked this trip, right? I knew that if I wait too long, I'll talk myself out of it
Yeah.
but that's how I keep thinking of it, right? God is whisking me away and, sitting in the presence of God feels so needed and exciting in a sense, but also it's such a sacrifice to make this kind of trip. Like I was thinking as you were sharing that, that cost you a lot of money, a lot of
Mhm.
time. You went alone, right? Like there wasn't anyone to share a meal with, to go see a movie with. Like you just did this totally alone, you and God. This cost you a lot of money, a lot of time. This might take away from a fun trip you get to do with friends in the future so that you could have the funds and the time away from everyday life to go do this. So talk to me about that. Like, I think people could get hung up on that. Like, wait a minute, sounds great, but I don't have unlimited, you're not a millionaire, right, Georgia? Like it's not like you can, it's not like this was an easy trip for you to afford and your life is really busy. So why? Why was it necessary or why did you find it okay to sacrifice a fun trip, a trip with friends or family for something like this?
Mm. Yeah, that's a good question. I think, yeah, because I had to save for it, and like it was like a matter of
Yeah.
like, I'm committing to doing this instead of maybe even like buying some new things or like, or going down to London for a trip or something. I think, hmm, I
Or just, yeah,
suppose,
I guess,
yeah.
yeah. I was just gonna say, tell us about the sacrifice. Like, do you regret that? The sacrifice you had to make?
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, I suppose that's the thing is that absolutely not. Like, I think it was like completely worth it, and I suppose it's like, of course it's different to like a fun friends getaway, but it's refreshing in an utterly different sense, right? Like it's a
Mhm.
different sort of refreshment where it's like, yeah, you're meeting with God, and I think for me the primary thing that I focused on this trip was joy. And so I
Mm.
think that as well sort of established it as like a holiday in a sense. Like it was like, even though it was like
Mm.
this retreat and it had like spiritual intention, um joy was like at the center of it, and joy with God. And and so there was lots of like memories created and times I laughed, and like it's like it's like a completely special memory to me now. And
Mhm.
I feel like I'd have to be transparent. Like, of course, there were moments where I was like, this would have been a nice moment with someone. Like,
Sure.
I was in touch with those moments of like, oh, I feel
Mhm.
lonely right now, or I feel like, oh, it would have been nice if I was experiencing this with someone. Um, and not just God, I suppose, but like, someone
Mhm.
else.
Someone
But
in the flesh,
yeah, exactly,
in
in the
3D,
flesh.
yeah.
But even with those moments, like it was still like just so yeah, just so joyful, and so like it was like good in a deeper sense, and like refreshing in a different way. I don't want to say it's deeper than
Yeah.
refreshment that we get from being with friends, but it was just a different source of refreshment, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm
Um
assuming like a slower, more peaceful
mhm.
refreshment, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and I think, I think yeah, it just didn't feel like, it didn't even feel like sacrifice. Like it felt
Mm.
like, I think even with this idea of like God whisking away, like it feels like it's a treat of sorts where it's like
Yeah.
I'm being delighted
Wooed.
in. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
being wooed. I'm being, it's like, it's just like, wow, I never, even the idea of like, I never in my daily life get to just spend whole days with God. That is like,
Mm.
that is unheard of at this point. And so I think that was helpful as well, like really saying like, wow, I get to spend this time just enjoying God's presence, and experience him enjoying me. Um, I think that helped as well, thinking about maybe God's perspective on it, like saying like, how does he feel about me taking this trip? He's over the moon. He's like,
Yeah.
yes, he's just so excited. And I really felt like I could imagine, like, this whole thing of like, God's counting down the days. He's so excited to spend time with his daughter.
Yeah.
He can't wait. He's so excited to like go on this trip and just be together, and to reflect on the memories at the end of the trip. What went well, what didn't go well, what was like the disasters, what was like the highlights. I think that helped as well, where it's like, I think, yeah, getting in touch with like God's enjoyment and like joy in this decision to like dedicate this time to being with him was like,
Mom.
it made it exciting, I think.
So beautiful what you're saying. And I think it reminds me so much of like a marriage, right? God says
Mm,
that we are his bride. And I was thinking about the times that I've gone away with my husband, especially since having children, because it's more novel when you have kids to go away. And it is a sacrifice. Obviously it costs money to go away, but at least for me, I have to move heaven and earth to leave my children, my
yeah.
home, my life for a few days, right? I have to rearrange work stuff. I have to make some meals. I have to arrange all the childcare. I have one child who has special needs. That requires a lot of help, additional planning whenever I have to leave. And so it is a monumental task and a big sacrifice to go away with my husband. And truthfully, there have been times where my husband has said, "Hey, actually, this just happened. We had our 10-year anniversary a few months ago, and we are going. Thank you. We are going on a big trip in the fall to celebrate our anniversary. But for our actual anniversary over the summer, my husband was like, let's get away for a weekend. And I was like, listen, I just don't think we can make it happen. Like, it's just too hard, and it is easy to be like, it's easier just to stay here and have a hour-long date night and, just say that that's good enough, right? But every time we get away, I always think, oh, this is why we do that, right? Because I always have this sense with my husband when we get away, like, oh yeah, I remember you. Like you're funny. We're friends, right? Like we're not just partners making it through life,
Yeah.
keeping the kids fed and alive and keeping our house running. And like, oh yeah, we like each other. We're not that I'm not saying that, every other day
Yeah.
apart from going away, my husband and I are like we hate each other. No, we like each other most days. But when we get away, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember you. I remember us, right? And so it's a sacrifice, but every time we do it, I feel like, oh yeah, it's such a necessary sacrifice that we need to make. And we always come back with some great perspective. Every time we're away, the two of us, we always take some time to reflect, to pray, to think about what's going well in our lives, what's not going well, what do we need to adjust, what do we need to add, what do we need to take away. And so I guess I'm sort of hoping
Mm,
that the same will happen in this trip with me and God. I feel similarly, like my husband trying to get me to go away for our anniversary trip it felt like so much wooing, like, oh, he really wants to whisk me away and he's willing to make the sacrifice and, farm out the kids and all this stuff in order to go away. And even with that, right, like there is this monumental task that comes on my part, but it's still so flattering. And so you feel so wanted and chased after when you feel this like wooing by God, like, come away with me, just me, right? I want just you.
mm,
But it is a sacrifice. And I think that's helpful for us to dispel for people
yeah.
because what we're not saying is if you have an abundance of time and money, definitely build this in. No, we're saying even if you are dead broke and you are, stressed to the max with all the things you have to do, this is still worth the sacrifice in whatever way makes sense for you in your life
Mm,
to have alone time, a little honeymoon, a little getaway, a little romantic getaway with you
mhm.
and God. The other thing you said is, well, I guess I want clarification. You said you sort of focused on joy when you were
Yeah.
away. Did you set like some expectations or did you go into this thinking, I want to come out with clarification on X, Y, and Z, or I want to learn about this aspect of God or life? Like, how did you go into it? What are the expectations you had going into it?
Yeah, I it's so funny that you say that because I remember afterwards I had a conversation with someone and I was telling them about my whole approach to this retreat and they said to me like, "Well, like the main piece of advice for retreats, right?" And I was like, "No, what is it?" And they said, "You don't plan. You don't set an agenda. You let God set the agenda." And I was
Oh,
like, "I
all
wish
right.
you'd told me that before I went." Like I was like cuz there I was because now I'll tell you I had a detailed plan about everything God and I needed to fix. Everything. I was
I
so ready. I
see.
was like, I need, here's the things that, I need to repent of. Here's the things that I really need some answers about.
Mm.
Here's some things that, here's like my, my prayers for the year. Here's some things that God and I need to work out and sort of like, restore our closeness over. I was like in fixer mode initially. Um, and I remember my first night, I arrived and I went down to the beach. And I feel like beaches in particular are places where it's like I feel like I always say like that's where I hash things out with God. Like that's where it's like okay,
Mhm.
let's get some stuff sorted.
Right.
And I was ready to go and then I felt immediately he was like no. Let's just enjoy each other.
Enjoy.
get in the sea. You
Wow.
know, it was like, go and swim in the sea. And so that's what I
Wow.
did. And I was like,
Was it freezing?
it may have been, I love swimming in the sea. So I feel like
Okay,
maybe I'm
wow.
like, maybe I'm
Immune to
okay
it.
with it. But
Yeah.
it definitely was cold. But you know, I suppose the good thing about the North Sea is that when you get out, you feel warm, you know,
Oh,
because it
well,
was
there you go.
cold and now it's
Yeah.
fine. But but yeah, so I swam in the sea, and I think just that it was so great the way God, like, I suppose, like, interrupted me in that moment and was like, I
Oh.
love you, appreciate you had this like whole agenda going in. It's not the point. We are just going to enjoy each other. Like, I just want to enjoy you. I want you to enjoy me. Everything else will sort itself out, that sort of thing. And so it really was like, I did just like, I swam in the sea, I ran along the beach. Like, I felt like I was lucky there was no one on the beach, because I must have looked like a little bit like a crazy person, because I was just like kind of like
Joyfully, gleefully
just like,
running wet
yeah,
out of the
exactly, just
sea.
like
Yeah.
splashing on the waves. I mean, I just looked probably
Oh,
crazy.
I love that.
But it was so fun, and it, you know, again, it was just like it was, and so from that moment, so I wish I'd known before going, like, okay,
Mm.
maybe set one tone or like one fruit of the spirit to focus on. But it's you know, I think that was an important lesson for me in that moment of like, I'm not here to fix everything, and God and I aren't here to fix
Uh-huh.
everything. You know, I think even about you know, these getaways with you and your husband, and how it's like, it's times where you laugh together and you realize, oh yeah, you're my friend, you're like, you're someone who I laugh with. And I think, you know, it's not the times where it's like you get out the planners and, you know, sort
Right.
everything
True.
out, you know. And I think, yeah, like, I'd wish I'd known that going in, but I'm so grateful that God kind of like just interrupted me at the beginning of this trip and was like, no, just enjoy it. And it did. It then changed the tone of the entire trip, where it was like, now this is just all about like, what do I enjoy doing with God? What do we
Mm.
enjoy doing together? And it was like, okay, well, I love to walk with him. I love to pray to him. I love to listen to worship music. There's this band called Celtic Worship. Have you heard of them?
No, I
I
thought you were
think
gonna
you'd
say
love
Celtic
them.
woman. Yeah,
No,
I'm gonna look it up. Celtic
I
worship
think,
sounds right up my alley.
yeah, exactly. I think you'd love them, Ellen, because they do well-known worship songs, but with like Celtic instruments, and they're Scottish, and they're incredible. I'll send you a YouTube link
Okay,
after this.
thank
Yeah,
you.
no problem.
I'm so
But
excited.
that's the only music I listened to on the trip, and it was just like
Wow.
so immersive. But it was like, I think it was just like, that's, I suppose that's how I had that choosing of joy. Like, yeah, what brings me and God joy? What brings me joy? What brings me joy with God?
Yeah.
And yeah, but yeah, I do have to say, it was something, I feel like it was such a Holy Spirit moment, because it was, yeah, I went in with a fixes agenda. So,
I'm so glad I asked you that because I think I've been slowly building my agenda for my retreat coming up in a few days. So I'm going for 3 nights and there will be other people there. Like it's not quite the same. I'm not just like in nature, but it's 110 acres and they have a river and different like hikes and prayer spots along the hikes and stuff like that. So I'm with you. I love being in nature with God and I fully plan to, be a part of that. What is great about this is that all your meals are taken care of. So you just show up to
mm,
eat and you eat and go back to your room or back outside or wherever. So I don't have to think about that, which is really great for me because my time is limited. I'm only
mhm,
there for 3 nights. But I'm so glad I asked you that because I think I was going in, my agenda was growing over these past few days as I've been preparing, like, oh God, let's add that to the list of stuff to figure out for my life while I'm away. And I love what you said. I think you're so right that this is a retreat with God to be fully immersed in Him. And what I hear you saying, I mean, even listening to you talk about this and what I'm hoping for my time with God is it sounds very romantic, right? Like
mhm,
it sounds very romantic. It sounds very intimate and even very private in a way, right? Like I'm so grateful you're sharing parts of your time with God with us so we can learn and glean. But if I were to tell you all about my trip with my husband, last trip that we took,
mhm,
I would tell you parts of it, but I wouldn't tell you all parts of it because some of those parts are private, right? And I feel like the same sort of feeling in what you're sharing with your trip with God. Like, wow, I feel like we're coming up on very sacred relational space, and you're giving us
Mhm.
a prism into what it was like so that we can learn and glean. But there are parts of it that sound very private and would be inappropriate to share with other people even, right? Or
Mhm.
maybe not certain like practical things that you did, but certain sentiments, right? That just very private and personal to you and God. And so I love that you're sharing that in that sense, but I also love the call to all of us, listeners and me,
Mm.
that we each have a personal, romantic, even relationship with God, and He is wooing us, right, whisking us away in our own special relationship with Him. And what I kind of thought, even wrote this down, is that you are building your relationship culture with God, your relational culture with Him, right? Like one thing I love about being a marriage and family therapist is that every relationship, every family that I get a peek into has a different culture. And I love that. I almost studied sociology before I studied counseling, or actually, it was in my undergrad. Before I studied communication, I almost studied sociology because different cultures fascinate me. Like we had a 30-minute conversation before this about the differences in our
Mhm.
cultures, and I find it so fascinating. But the same kind of differences and similarities exist in relational culture, and I find that even more fascinating. And so we each have a relational culture with God because it is a personal relationship, right? It's different from anyone else's. And so I love, like, you know God well enough, you have enough experience with him relationally to know what is the norm in your culture with him, right? Like we connect in nature and the beaches where we work things out. And you can tell, like you can hear the prompting of the spirit in your heart. Like, nope, we're not going to talk about that. We're going to be together, right?
Yeah.
We're going to frolic in the sea and have a great time and not fix anything, right? So I love that call. And it's a great way for me to go into my retreat with just the reminder that this isn't necessarily the time to fix anything. Just like if I went away with my husband, this is a time to be with God. And I need to temper my expectations so that I don't come out, disappointed. Oh no, we didn't solve X, Y, and Z. But I need to savor the time together, the connection together. But also, yeah, like I'm just excited now that you shared that to continue to learn and build this relational culture in my personal
Yeah.
relationship with God.
That's so exciting. Yeah, it must be yeah, it's so interesting with you like going into it. I suppose I'm thinking like for listeners what might be helpful to know in this like before part of the trip. Like what do you think are like
Mm.
some helpful ways of thinking about as you plan a trip, as you sort of prepare your heart in going to this place? Like what's helping you navigate like this before of like going into this time?
Yeah, I think, well, I shared that I booked it before I could cancel,
Yeah.
before I could change my mind. And I think that was really important. Like, I really made sure that I was locked in. Like, I could not cancel, I could not get out because I knew I had the thought, like, oh, I should do that one day.
Mhm.
And then I thought, I know if I don't do it soon, I'll talk myself out of it. It just gets too hard to do.
Mhm.
And so I made sure to like trap myself in it before I could change my mind. And even now, like I'm being totally serious. One moment of the day, I feel like I can't wait to be immersed in God. And then the other part of the day, I'm like, what am I going to do? What have I done? I wish I could escape. I feel trapped, right? So I think I just want to normalize that for people who might be planning this, that that's normal. And I think that's good. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't go, that you've done something wrong. Expect that because the part of our brains that are so used to being stimulated at every second of the day, I'm assuming it's going to be a bit of a detox. My first, 24 hours or so there might just be, whoa, it's quiet and I'm not reading anything or watching anything or listening to anything. And, it might take 24 hours or so for the buzz to kind of die down in my heart. So I was previously, before I talked to you, thinking about it like, I'll probably take 24 hours just to detox.
Mm.
And that might be difficult, right? I'll feel bored sometimes and like, what am I going to
Yeah.
do? But now I'm thinking, and then I thought, the next 2 days would be productive. Like we're going to wrestle and figure everything out. But now I'm thinking I'm going to go in without any real expectations on what I come out with. I think my goal is to connect with God, to be in God's presence, to sit with him. And so I guess that would be my encouragement to anyone who's planning something like this in the before is set your expectations, but set them realistically, that you're not going to come out with all these answers for life. Those, hopefully there will be some clarity in certain things, but let God determine what that clarity will be in and let your goal just be connection. So, Yeah. And then I think, for anyone who's kind of in the before stage, who's struggling with even scheduling this, I don't think this is how it started for you or me, right? Like, this isn't my first experience going away with God individually, and it wasn't yours either. So I would say starting with a 3-day or a week-long, trip with just God is unrealistic. That's not what
Right.
we're
Yeah.
we're calling people to do. But start with building in a Sabbath into your life. Start with going on a walk with God very intentionally, where you don't have any music and you're not thinking about anything except for turning your heart to God and listening to Him. I think one big moment that comes into mind for me that I'm hoping to recreate in a retreat like way is a few years ago. I was going through a really difficult time. It was right when my book was a little, about to come out, and it was in a very controversial area. And I knew that people were going to hate me for it. And it was kind of approaching the point of no return. And I felt all stopped up in my spirit, right? Like I call it eating gluten of the heart, right? Like it's all stopped up. There's nothing getting through. And I needed an answer from God. Do I have to do this? That was my question. Do I have to do this, God? I don't want to do this. And I went to a park and I told God, I'm not leaving here until I hear from you on this. And it took me like 5 hours for my heart, like to purge everything from my heart in order to get my heart to a place where I could hear God, hear promptings in the spirit. And so I think I'm so glad that I had that experience before this upcoming trip. And it's something I'd offer to our listeners, that's kind of my expectation going into this, is that it's going to take some time for my heart to kind of purge in
Mhm.
order to be able to connect with God enough to hear Him. But I think that is my ultimate goal now that I've talked to you. Not that I'll come away with certain, fixes for my life, but that I will be able to get unblocked and kind of purge in my heart toward, hand things over to God and then receive whatever He wants me to.
I love that. Yeah, and I think I was gonna say that, like, yeah, I suppose something about our trips is that they were 3 days. Like, we weren't going away for 2 weeks. We weren't going away for even
Good
one
point.
week. Like, it's like
Yep.
I've even been thinking, like, if I sustainably want to introduce this into my life regularly, like every 6 months or something, I can't even do really 3 days every 6 months. I can do maybe 2 nights or one
Mm,
night, but like even that, it's
yeah.
like I think it's that whole thing of like it's you can shape it, I suppose, to like what
Yeah.
is suitable for your schedule, what is even suitable for like where you're at in your relationship with God right now. Like it really is like I can only handle a walk right now.
Hmm.
And you know what? Yeah, it's like God loves that. He's delighted, you know?
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
so I
I love
think,
that.
yeah, I love that. It's like it doesn't have to be extravagant.
Yeah. And I think what I hear you saying is what matters more is the intention behind it.
Mhm.
3 days, a 1 hour walk, whatever it is, anything in between, be intentional. Be aware that God is there. Turn to Him in your heart. Let Him be a part of it. Make it about Him, not about you and what you're want or what you're going through or any kind of entertainment. Make it about your guys' relationship, right? And I
Mhm.
think too, when you just said that, I thought, every trip I've gone on with my husband, we've rarely gone to the same place, every single time we get a little getaway. It never looks the same. Even if we were to go to the same place, we would do different things and there'd be kind of a different feel, a different flavor to that getaway, right? And so I think in the same way, our relationship with God is a living, dynamic relationship. Every getaway that we have can be a little bit different. Like I even thought about this retreat that I'm going on. I'm so glad to have found this place. I fully envision that in the future, I'll go there and outline another book or study out a certain
Mhm.
topic, right? And just kind of shut out the noise of the world to be able to do that. But I think sometimes I need to go there with, like what we're saying, with no intention, with no to-do list, and just be with Him, connect with Him in a very kind of honeymoon-like fashion, right? So I love that you just had a renewal of a honeymoon with God. I'm going to have one coming up in a few days. Hopefully that's helpful to our listeners, to
Yeah.
just kind of one thing we value here on this podcast is talking about the abstract, but also offering practical. So I hope that, by giving a little bit of an insight into what your trip practically looked like, what mine, will maybe practically look like. I hope that will help listeners dispel the abstract of planning a getaway with God. Any final words you have, Georgia, for our listeners on this?
I was just gonna say reclaim the word pilgrimage, you know? If you wanna use if you wanna say that, like, your 1-hour walk is a pilgrimage, like,
Oh, I
use it.
love
I don't
that.
know. I just think, I think yeah, I think just make these trips, like, allow them to be. I think, yours is a silent retreat. I think it's helpful to put these names to it as well, of, like, to
Yeah.
make it special and to make it really, like, these are our times with God, and they are special and they are significant. And I think, yeah, it may just be a 1-hour walk around your city. It's a pilgrimage.
Yeah, there you go. I love that. I would say too, like in that vein, be whisked away by God. Let him whisk you away. Let him woo you away, right? And build your relational dynamic, your relational culture with him in these tender, intimate moments.
Mhm. Beautiful.
Thanks for being with us today, listeners. We look forward to seeing you next time.